Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks for making your way here, for checking out the series. You know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out new interviews every single week. It's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I get to talk with one of my favorite artists who we've been doing these interviews now for, I think, about 15 years. Hamilton Leithauser. He's back with a new album called This Side of the Island. Hello.
How you doing?
I'm well, man. It's good to hear from you again.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a few years. I feel like we used to do this a bit more consistently.
Well, it's been a while for me to put out a record, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, I'm in my house in DC, actually. This is a house I grew up in.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
taking it all the way back.
yeah.
Like you have one of those, like most parents, they sold the house, they moved. You still got the thing though.
Still, yeah, yeah. Still here. This is where it all started.
Yeah, that must be nice to have.
Yeah, it is.
I every now and then I'll get a an alert on one of those house shopping websites, Zillow or whatever it is, about my childhood home, and I'll check out the pictures, like
Oh, really?
what it looks like now. That's the closest I get.
Where did you grow up? In Louisville?
No, in Kentucky, it's about a hour and a half southwest, little town between two lakes called
Uh,
Litchfield.
Uh-huh.
So it's what I call a bait and tackle town.
Uh-huh.
We had the
Great.
vending machines where on one side would be the sodas and the other side would be worms and crickets.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have
So
a lot of family from Danville.
I know Danville. I've been to
Yeah.
Danville at some point, but
My mom went to Center College there.
mhm, that's what it's known for.
Yep.
That's what's in Danville. I think that's the only thing there.
Well, there's also the Stith Funeral Home, which is my family business out there.
Uh-huh. And you've always got one of those too. That's the
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, that's it. So this is the first album, I think, what is it, in like 5 years it's been released. But I also hear you talk about this album and you're like, yeah, but I've been working on this album for 8 years, which
Actually, you know what? I realized it's actually 10 years.
so how does that work? I mean, you're overlapping albums at that point, right?
Well, I mean, I work on music all the time, and so I released, for instance, my record. Like I always have stuff on the back burner, and I released "Love's Your Life" in 2020 when I thought I had a full rack of songs that made sense, and I was happy with it, and I still am. But I had a bunch of these that I would have was working on for that record that I couldn't finish for one reason or another,
Yeah.
and stuff I just couldn't let go. I was just like married to it, which is sometimes a bad idea, but I've kind of just fought through and made a few of them happen in the end, and I'm really happy with them now.
So
The
when you're
first the
oh,
first three songs on this record were all in the works for the last record.
okay. So that's what I was wondering is like when you're working on album or songs, like do you hear them like, oh, those group of songs might go together for this project versus this group might go over
Yeah,
here?
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I always have stuff lying around that I don't. It's not like lesser, but it just doesn't work at the time, so I don't use it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm always just making stuff.
Because there is something about this, like there's a danceability to this album that I don't think has existed exactly like this in your songwriting
Oh,
before.
good. Thanks. That's what I wanted, actually. I credit my daughters with that, actually, because they make me listen to pop music exclusively when we're in the car. I mean, if it's not their music, then they just wear me down with the complaints. So we hear, it used to be Taylor Swift. Now it's like Charlie XCX and Chappel Roan.
Hmm.
And I honestly, in the last whatever 5 years, I think that having so much of that just pumped into my brain, I was kind of like, maybe it'd be fun to make some songs that they would even in their wildest dreams consider listening to.
Yeah. It's funny how that, I mean, that's normal. That's a story. If you're
Yeah.
if you're a musician and you've got a parent, sorry, if you're a musician who's got a kid or kids, like I hear that story a lot. I got a son and he didn't go the pop route growing up. I didn't force anything on him other than like he got into like Huey Lewis,
Oh, really?
and the 80s stuff. And
Good for him.
yeah. And then, once he turned into a teenager, like he'd take a shower and put on music, but it'd be like 90s alternative. Like that wasn't me again. That was all him.
Wow.
So it's now that he's finding his
Mature.
way into
Very
that.
mature. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's finding his way into pop now. I think that he's in high school. But yeah, I still get the Taylor thing from my wife. I mean, she's
Of
a huge
course.
fan of
Well,
that. Yeah.
Taylor's everywhere. Yeah.
She's everywhere. But there is, so even though you can, so there might be you listening to pop, but but that organic thing is still there. Like the drums sound so good on this.
Oh, thank you. I'm
This
really
is
proud of my drum tone. That was one thing I felt like I played them and I recorded them, and I feel like that was that. I'm so glad you said that. That's like the
like
ultimate
I want to
compliment.
air drum to this album. And I mean that. Like
Oh,
I've heard it like
thanks.
twice, and every time I'm already like doing
Awesome.
doing this over here. Um, but that's the thing, right? So I was trying to think though last time we talked, because I think last time we talked we were talking about crooners. It was a very crooning album that last time around.
Yep.
Like when you knew what this album, or even if you think about it that way, like once you sort of had a grasp on these songs, like if that was the crooner album in the past, like
Right.
what is this album to you?
This is definitely like funkier and groovier. I think the first three songs are what set the tone for it. That's why they are the first three songs, and they're the first three that I wrote. And I just wanted to make something that was like, in a way, it has more space. There's more space in the bass playing and in the drums, actually, which I think makes it so you can hear everything better, and every element's kind of in its own spot. And I feel like I built a lot of grooves that I hadn't ever really considered before. It's just not something I ever. It's not the kind of music I used to make, and I was really happy with the. I felt like that was a new direction.
Yeah. So and you teamed up with, of course, you got co-producers, your wife
Yep.
and Aaron Dessner.
Yep.
How does that work? What's the
Well,
story
my
there?
wife is forced to do it because I come upstairs and out of my studio, and then I force her to listen to it, and it just drives her crazy. And then after a long time, she was kind of like, I don't even know. I try to keep it away from her as much as possible so that she'll have like fresh ears when I finally feel like I've gotten it to the end of the line.
Hmm.
But then eventually you just drag her into it, and then she's in the muck with you too. As you see how the sausage gets made, and it's like,
Have you ever
it's like,
credited her before?
actually, no. This is the first time she's really been involved, to be honest.
Okay.
So, I mean, she's always been around, but I haven't really ever like run it by her like I did this time.
Uh-huh.
Um, and Aaron just helped me out at the very end by inviting me up to. I was just telling him that I was in this spot where I was like, I either have a lot of songs or I got nothing, and I just can't tell anymore because I've just been working by myself. And he invited me up to his studio to just like listen or play, or we didn't even have a plan.
Yeah.
And we just listened through, and he was like, I think you're almost done. And I was just like, hearing that from someone that you know and someone you respect is like just great just to hear that. And then he added a bunch of instruments that really like changed my perspective on the album. He made it sound much more modern, which he's really good at. And that right there, just I mean, the songs were written, but the new sound really, to me, got me really excited again on it, and gave me just like a last burst of energy to like sort of remix a bunch of stuff and put all of his tracks into it, and then it was done. And I had that feeling like, man, I want people to hear this, and that's always like a really good sign. That's always like, okay, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I knew I was done at that point.
Yeah. And even having him like not taking any credit away from the work you had done, but man, everything that he's touching right now is just, and
Yeah,
it's
no,
so
it's great. No,
great.
he's good. That's why I knew he would be good, and he was. So
Yeah.
certain people are good. That's just like definitely like a skill I don't have. Like to come on somebody else's, help somebody else sort of like help like clarify their own vision of something.
Uh-huh.
It's just like that's what like a good producer does, and
Right,
that's
right. Well, let me ask about a few of these songs then. First single we got was Knockin' Hearts.
yeah.
And I want to read what you wrote in the press release because you say
Okay.
it's sung by an estranged stoned lover on their way home who is dying to get a message through to someone who is probably not listening.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So when you write that, are we talking more like fictional thing? Because I'm sure I want to ask if there's a bit of you in that song, but when a description like that is there, like this feels like really good fiction.
It's a little, yeah, it's both. I mean, it's fiction, but it's based on real life, just like anybody would write something. I mean, it's not like I'm not, I'm a happily married man, and but I feel like you could, a love song anybody can pick up on, take it however they want. So you
Mhm.
can say a love song can be about like, a person, or it could be about like a bottle of booze, or it could be about like a place you love. And so you can just assign whatever you feel. That's just that description is a very specific. I like to try to be as specific as possible with what I was thinking,
Mhm.
but maybe if somebody didn't read that and they hear the song, they'll be thinking about something completely different.
I like when artists actually. I've got nothing against when they're like, I don't like talking about my songs. It's up to interpretation, all that. But I think I personally get something more out of it when I hear that. And
I
maybe
do
that's
too, with
because,
a very specific, and I like to be very specific now because I feel like I can, which has taken me a long time to get to the point where a clear vision of what I'm talking about, and I feel like in the last three records I've really gotten to the point where I can verbalize what I'm saying, and I feel like that's a now that I play a lot of concerts where I play sort of smaller venues, but where it's kind of more fancy kind of place like the Carlyle.
Mhm.
It takes you into a more intimate place where you really want to express what you're taught. You really want people to know what you're saying before you sing it, so that it's more of like a connection. Like I used to just get up on stage and I didn't even say hi to the audience. We just blast everybody's head off, which honestly is really fun too. And I have nothing against that. I did that for so many years. I at one point I thought, you know, I like it better when when I can really explain what I'm doing and I can be clear about what I'm talking about and then what I'm singing about and then I sing it and I can see the recognition in people's faces when I sing certain lines and they say, "Oh, that's what he's talking about. It's not nonsense."
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time writing these words, so it's like I just want people to know it's not nonsense.
That's really close to one of my favorite Michael Stipe lines.
What's
Uh,
that?
well, he would talk about, in the 80s, how everything was very, very abstract in the lyrics. And of course, they would famously mix his vocals down. And he said, one day I realized, hey, people are listening. I might want to make these counts.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's sort of that. It feels like it's sort of in that same line. But even to that point, like even live, it's interesting how it becomes a point of conversation in the audience when you leave and someone says, he didn't talk to the audience once,
Right,
you
right.
know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like you're going on tour with Tillman. I love Josh and everything, but he sort of famous for that as well. He gets up. I just saw him the other night on stage, does the
Oh, yeah.
songs. They're fantastic. Maybe says thanks once.
Oh,
It's
really? Oh, that's
yeah,
funny. I haven't seen him in a while.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll do the talking on that tour. I'll tell you that much. I can't shut up.
Do you hear that now? Not saying you do or don't, but if you listen back on the Walkman stuff, I'm talking about the lyrics and being specific. Like, is it obvious if you're being a bit vague and coy? Like, do you hear
Yeah.
back what you meant to be talking about?
Yeah, but sometimes I was going for the, I mean, there's something I like to try when I was younger. A lot of the times I wanted to try to write just like a universal love song or like a universal, like something that I intentionally wanted. Sometimes I tried to write lyrics that you'd intentionally wouldn't pay attention to, and it was more just about the way that I would just like yell it or snarl it or whatever. And it was, sometimes I mean there is a place for writing almost cliche, putting like tucking almost cliched phrases in so that it doesn't like distract from the attitude you're trying to put into it. And that only works because you're singing. I'm not like writing like a poem or I'm not writing a story because then I can just put all my energy into the way that I'm presenting it.
Sure.
And so I have nothing against that. It's just that's not what I do right now.
Yeah. Because a lot of times feeling can make up for even bad lyrics if
Yeah, totally. It totally can. And you can and I mean, how many songs in the world say like, since my baby left me? Like, I mean, but some people do that really well.
Yeah, that's true. There is a lyric on here. What do I think? I got a feeling people are going to be asking about it too because it's the kids today. They got everything wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please enlighten.
I mean, it's what do that's my favorite song on the record actually
It's a
because
cool song.
that's sort of a simple lyric that you wouldn't maybe sort of sounds a little bit throwaway the first time you hear it, but if you pay attention to it, which I hope some people will, I say, what do I think? What do I know? What do I love? And it's kind of like a serious question about where have you ended up in your life and the life that you've built for yourself. Like, are you happy with it? Are you happy with the way things are going? Or what do you actually like about what you're doing? When you're writing music and then you finish a song and then you're like, well, I spent all this time on it. Do I actually like it? Like, I don't think I ever want to hear it again in my life. Like it's kind of like a funny question to ask yourself when you're like my age. Um, yeah, the kids they got everything wrong. I thought that was, you can every generation is going to say that about the younger generation, right? I thought that
Sure.
was a great time to say it, and then not explain it, and just say that's another story for another song. Maybe I'll write that song someday.
It definitely stands out. That's why
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. Like, at what point did you realize that you had officially aged, into saying things like that unironically. You know?
I don't know. I don't know. I just saw the line just came to me and I thought I got a kick out of it.
Yeah. Happy Light's another great one.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just go through the that's what I would do. I just look at the track list like that's a great song. That's a great song. That's a great
Awesome. Well, I like the sound of that.
So you are taking it back out. You mentioned the Carlyle again, seventh time, did I read?
Seventh time, yeah, in 8 years because COVID knocked us back a year.
Yeah. Any
But yeah,
what do you got planned?
we're doing a whole month this year.
Had you not done that before? Is this the longest?
The longest I've done was last year because we extended it because it was
Okay.
going really well, and it was 3 weeks. Before that, it had been 2 weeks, but this is gonna be four. It's a lot. It's a very tiring show.
Yeah. So tell us about it a little bit because this isn't like your normal, like what we might see you on the road, right?
No, I mean, actually, recently I've been sort of doing shows that we were trying to find venues that were as similar as possible. I just went to LA and London, and now I'm going to Toronto on Monday and then Chicago.
Mhm.
And we were trying to find venues, and I got to give credit to my agent and my manager for finding good spots that were where I could sort of present the same type of show
Mhm.
and sort of allude to it and sort of just try to be able to, sit there and tell everybody, have a time where, small enough, but I mean, still like a nice room, but small enough where I can really like talk to everybody and feel like we're all sort of connected for a little while there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a space here in town. It's the Silbach Hotel, which is famously Gatsby wrote about this. That's where a bit of it was written and everything. But it's got a place downstairs. It's very in that Carlisle
Oh,
sort
really?
of
I
way.
didn't know
They
that.
they don't do a lot of shows there. It's you can walk into it any time. I mean, it's just part of the hotel, but they don't do a lot. They used to do like jazz nights there, but you just saying that kind of brought that up. Like, there is something kind of
Huh.
magical about those rooms and what they do. And
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it right, I feel like we've got a really good show. It's also we play like a rock and roll show. We're not playing like standards, and so I think it is kind of like a special thing. Like it really worked well in London. It really worked well in LA, and apparently the place in Chicago is really awesome too. So that's kind of my thing right now.
yeah, I love that. So one of the things I think might have been a little surprising is, of course, in the middle of all this, it's not like you weren't doing anything. There was the Walkman. You did the Walkman reunion, and played plenty of shows with that, and then that was it. Was that the plan?
I mean, the plan it was never going to be as long as I never knew it was going to go as long as it did, but it was. We all agreed. I mean, it was really fun for
Mhm.
starters, and then secondly, it went really well, and nobody really wanted to stop. Like people would start offering us other things, and we think, well, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that. And so it went on a lot long. I mean, I thought it was going to be like originally like 5 shows, and that
Mhm.
was it. But it was just fun. And it was just fun being with our friends. So we said, why not? We did get to a fun. I'm glad it ended when it ended. Like I was ready for it to end, and I was working on. I knew the whole time I was doing that this was on the in the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
So I
I
knew
mean,
that it was going to stop when I finished my record. But to be honest, I didn't. The record wasn't my record wasn't finished, and it was just great being back with my guys. So
yeah. Was the, you're with each other. You're all musicians. Do you not just sit around and noodle out songs, or
that's
do you
not
make
really
sure
how
you don't?
we never really worked like that. So no, and also when you're on the road, I've never been able to really write on the
Oh,
road. It's
okay.
just so exhausting. But no, we always have sort of worked like kind of separately and individually. Even when we're collaborating, we're always like sort of send each other stuff remotely
Mhm.
and only get together sort of towards the end of songs. So it's never like we just sort of like jammed around.
So there's really actually less of a chance of a Walkman record than I think people expected from the sound of it.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen right now.
Not gonna
No.
have it. It's which is fine. It was just again, it's one of those things like when you're on this side of things, right? You're like, man, those guys are together. Is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? No,
Right.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just not gonna happen.
I like the way you say that. That sounds very definitive. That's
Yeah.
it was great seeing you all back together for
It was great.
everything.
I loved it. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
that you all do with each other. I'm not complaining about what has come out of this because again, my first initial listen to this record was like, holy cow. I'm talking about this new one, this side of the island. It
Oh,
is. It's
thanks.
it's just like holy cow. That was my first reaction. Every other reaction after that was this is shit. But the first reaction was
Yeah, yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's
Wow.
what I was expecting. Thanks. I mean, I'm really proud of it. I really put my put everything I had into it.
Yeah. Well, right on, man. Well, I can't wait to hear these tracks come out live out on
Yeah,
the road. So
yeah, man.
congrats to this, and it's great to talk to you as always.
Thank you. It's great to talk to you too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll see you around.
Okay, man. Take it
All right,
easy.
cool. And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.